inventory on all the plants.
Oh.
All right, well, welcome. We're not used to having a crowd here. This is a crowd. More than one person as a crowd. So I'd just like to call to order Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission meeting. It's 5 o'clock and it is October 3rd. So can I get a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? And then can I get a motion to approve August 1st, 2024 minutes?
I motion approval of the August.
Second?
First. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next, we are just gonna move to our open forum. So first is there. I suppose I'll just open it. Well, actually, we'll start with Amber. Do you want to start with City Park Phase 1 presentation?
I'd love to. Yes, thank you all for coming tonight. I am Amber. I am the Park and Rec Director here in Nisswa. So this is our regular Parks Commission meeting. We've tailored this meeting specifically to City Park. And talking about the Phase 1 improvements. So I have a presentation for you guys tonight. I'm open to a few questions. We do have a second presentation after that. So we'll have some questions. If you guys want to stay for the rest of the meeting, we do have one business item to attend to. And then after the meeting, you're welcome to stay, look at pictures, talk with any of the commission members and myself. So we do want to open it up to a few questions in case you guys do need to leave. But if you're able to and you want to stay for the whole meeting, this entire meeting is geared towards City Park and City Park improvements. So with that, to provide you guys a quick overview of Nisswa Park and Rec, we have 2 full-time staff. We have myself and a park maintenance technician. We have 4 to 7 winter seasonal staff. We do not have any summer seasonal staff. With that, we offer over 15 programs a year. We need the assistance of about 12 organizations and over 20 volunteers to make that happen every single year. We oversee about 40 acres in parkland, as well as 3.5 miles of paved trail, the new Gull Lake Trail, as well as about 2 miles of crushed concrete trail. And so we will be constructing just over another 1/2 mile of the Gull Lake Trail along CSAH 77, anticipated for next summer. And then the last bit of infrastructure that we oversee is the Nisswa Community Event Center as well. So just want to give you guys a high level overview of just kind of what Park and Rec does, what we oversee, who we are. As we go forward, I think it's important that we understand our why. So we want to start with why before we get to the what. So I have a couple questions for you guys. This is interactive. You didn't know that. Nobody knew that. My question for you is, why is Park and Recreation an essential public service? Shout it out. Brings people to town, gives them something to do. You bet. So according to the National Recreation and Parks Association, some of their examples are economic value. So things like value of property taxes, and you mentioned it, the increase in tourism in the business industry. There's health and environmental benefits that you mentioned. It's physical and mental health. It helps improve water quality and air quality. And then obviously a social impact. It's quality of life, community pride, and helps reduce crime. Equally important to understand, why are parks, trails, open space, and recreation important to you? Also interactive.
We're all the above stated values. We're all interested in that in the first place, so I think you've already said it.
Yeah. I would say you wouldn't be here if it wasn't important to you, if it wasn't something you valued. Like to stay busy. We'll hire you. So yeah, it's all of those things. it's important to different people in different ways, right? Sometimes it's to connect with others and that human interaction. Sometimes it's for physical activity to reduce your stress or connect with nature. So those are just a couple examples of why it's important to different individuals. Conversely, we need to understand why not. Why are people not participating?
Lack of infrastructure.
Lack of infrastructure? Knowledge? Yeah, totally. What's available? What are the options? So just to list a couple, some people don't feel safe in the space, so they don't go. Time, cost prohibitive, social or physical barriers. Might be transportation, they don't have a way to get there. And then, like you guys mentioned, options and activities offered, they may not know about it. So I think it's critical that we understand why people are coming here. That was a huge part of our plan. It's part of our mission and our vision. We need to understand the why. Those are our, that it provides our purpose and our goals. It gives us a direction to go in. So the mission of the Park and Rec Advisory Commission is to provide rewarding recreational opportunities and facilities for residents and visitors alike, regardless of age, economic status, race, creed, physical or mental abilities or limitations. So these statements speak to our goals and our purpose. It's the lens that we went through the master plan with, and it speaks to Nisswa's why. It's the foundation that we build upon that guides us through this process. Everybody feels different. They have a different sense of space and place. And so we need to keep that in mind as we go through this. We want to hear people's feedback. We want to hear how they experience a place. So we're really looking to you guys to stay engaged in this process, to provide us your experiences. That helps us continue to plan, to continue to try and achieve this mission. So as we go on to implementing some of these things, we went through a master planning process. The city did a comprehensive plan in 2019, and that called for a recommendation to make a Park and Rec master plan. A key point of the master plan was City Park. We knew that the playground and the hockey rink were nearing the end of their useful life, and we have already removed the skating rink boards and the hockey refrigeration from the system. So we knew focusing on City Park was a critical element in the planning process. In June of 2022, we started the master plan, and it took about 8 months to get through it. A large component of the master plan was community engagement. This plan is based off of the feedback we received while trying to stay true to the mission and vision that we have. So we did several community engagement opportunities. It started with an online survey in July of 22. We had 208 respondents. From those survey results, we created 3 different concept designs. The goal was for them to be distinctly different to elicit feedback. We wanted to know what you guys liked, what you didn't like. We wanted to know what people wanted here in Nisswa. We had 3 in-person public engagement meetings, as well as an online forum for people to comment that way as well. And then from those concepts and the feedback we received, we found themes to create a preferred concept. And so that is what you have seen. That is the pictures in the room. That is what has been approved in our master plan, are that preferred concept. When we went through the planning process, they did estimate that currently we have over 7 million in existing infrastructure in our system. So that is quite a large investment this community has made in parks and recreation. It's a lot for us to keep thinking. And as we talked about, you know, space and financials are certainly constraints that we had to try and work within. So we're going to go through a video here. This is the preferred concept in 3D form. So to just help orient you guys, we have the baseball field here. That is right out back. The baseball field the community center and the softball field all remain in the same location. Those are largely untouched. There's minor improvements that would be projected, but most of that infrastructure isn't coming due for updates for another 10 years or so. So I'm gonna hit, yeah. It was a combination of the major feedback we received. So with the likes and dislikes from all the different concepts, we kind of took the overwhelming majorities, as well as looking at replacement cycles of other things, what staffing abilities, costs of things, and just kind of kept working our way down to this. Yeah. Okay, so this might move fast. I hope no one gets motion sickness. But this is just, again, conceptual. It doesn't mean everything on here is fact. And I'm talking like what type of picnic shelter it is. Not inside. Warming house, a new warming house facility. Yes, correct, in a covered hockey rink. So the question was asked if there was changes to the community center. The answer to that is no, not internally on this. What you are seeing though is a reorientation of the parking lot. And so one of the goals of the master plan was to improve circulation. So you're seeing more sidewalks coming into the park. You see a drop off area kind of over by the playground and to help cars cycle through more effectively.
So the community center, and then right behind that, isn't that where the firehouse is and where the recycling center was?
Yes, correct.
So can you position that in my head to where the firehouse is that same space?
No, so the question was helping everyone orient. If you're looking at this screen, this is where the firehouse is. This is to the right. If you're looking at the community center, it's to the right of the community center. So we have Main Street is coming down on this side and Church Street is over on the top right of your screen. Correct. Yes, that is already on city land.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like where that tennis court is approximately where the current basketball court, or, basketball court is.
We will get to that.
There's currently open land there. that the
Yes,
city owns.
so this is all city-owned land. This was from a grant in 1976 that they acquired this land for parkland in perpetuity. So we must maintain it as parkland. Within this, there is a little bit of a domino effect, so I'll be talking about that and how the space is gonna be laid out, but it is all city land right now. We're gonna figure that out. So yes, this is to scale, it is conceptual. So, all the things still need to be figured out. I'll say when we're looking at concept, this is, we're talking, the preferred concept called for 6 designated pickleball courts as well as 1 tennis court. So that's really what we're looking at. We have a desire to have seating and shade features. It doesn't mean it's gonna be what's on the picture. So if we keep that in mind, we're gonna figure out our space based off of 6 courts and a tennis court. So conceptually, phase 1 includes this rendering, of the pickleball court, so 6 pickleball courts and a tennis court. And then the other component of phase 1 improvements that we've been discussing is an inclusive playground. And so an inclusive, or the playground in general, can have a different shape to it. Generally, the size of the pickleball court is gonna be the size of the pickleball court, and it's gonna be a rectangle. But a playground can change shape to help figure out the space. So when we say an inclusive playground, it's looking at varying physical abilities, you're looking at social, emotional, neurodiverse, we're trying to consider all of those different abilities, and have a welcoming environment for all. We do not have a splash pad in this. It was a part of one of the concepts that we worked through and did not become part of the preferred concept. Yes.
It's not very big, does not have a large footprint, yet it accommodates, I've been there with 15 kids at the same time.
Yeah. So it is something that we did talk about, splash pads in general. We're on one of the concepts, actually 2 varieties of splash pads. And it's something that the Parks Commission talked about quite a bit. And it is not in the preferred concept, so it's not an avenue we're planning to pursue. But there are a couple of options in the area. One is what you talked about in Brainerd, and the other one is in Pequot Lakes now. So to the question of where does it all go? Site planning. We did get approved to begin site planning in August. And so this is a key step in moving it from concept to be able to implement. In large part, I have some of the tasks listed. We're looking at the existing conditions, preparing a base map, looking at any environmental concerns that need to be assessed and addressed, looking at the concept, verifying everything, and the space that each amenity is going to need. So we need to lay out where each piece of the park is going to go. With that, they'll prepare some preliminary plans as well as a timeline and refine the cost estimate. Probably one of the biggest questions I get asked is, what's the timeline? It's a very tough question to answer. As we go through site planning, we're going to look at how long it'll take to actually implement. What we don't know is when we'll be able to implement it, because it is based on when we can secure funding. So that's why it's a tough answer. We'll figure out how long it's going to take to construct it, but when construction will happen is still to be determined.
Do you have preliminary concepts?
We have educated figures. So when we worked through it, the plans with our consultant, they gave us a lot of behind the scenes numbers that they've seen in the industry, as well as just looking through magazines, talking to consultants, talking to other cities. So I'll say at right now, it's an educated guess on those cost estimates. You guys may have seen some of this. Right now for phase 1, the estimated cost is just short of 1.2 million. So we started the Nisswa Enrichment Fund last fall. The Nisswa Enrichment Fund is housing the donations. We have partnered with the Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation to host that fund. And so Terry will be speaking to that here after my presentation. The idea here, Parks Commission set a goal of raising 600,000 by February 1st. So 600,000 is half of what we estimate the project costs to be. The idea is that we would use those funds raised as matching dollars to apply for a DNR grant. The one we've kind of had our eye on is the DNR Outdoor Rec Grant. It has an award value of $350,000. So the February 1st timeline is in conjunction with being able to apply for that grant. That's where that comes from. It's an annual grant. We would have to determine if we're going to submit it by the end of March of 2025. So that's what we're working on. You've probably seen some of this marketing. City staff and the Parks Commission, by extension, are very limited in what we can do in terms of fundraising. And so I'm going to put it out there. While your feedback is super helpful, super valuable, we want to hear from you. We want to hear how you experience the parks. If you're able to contribute financially, that's helpful. If you're able to donate time, we need individuals, community businesses, organizations. We're going to need everybody to make this happen. So we're asking for help. The city is very limited in what we can do for fundraising. And so it's going to have to be a community effort to lift this up and be able to implement it. Question? I will put this PowerPoint on our website. A lot of the information's already there. It's cityofnisswa.gov. It's on under the parks page, a fundraising tab. So you can watch the fly-through video. You can see specific images for pickleball playground, all of those things. But yeah, as we go through this and we're trying to put together the funding, every grant has different requirements and every grant has different timelines. And so we're trying to find a way to put it all together.
Amber, I'm interested. So I'm a pickleball player. That's my main interest. I have used all of the recreational, for many of them, and I'm grateful for all of them. There are a lot of models out there, and when you say the city is limited in fundraising, models out there for pickleball courts and for playgrounds, is the DNR grant the only grant you're pursuing? I've heard of other grants that may be available, other monies that may be available. Can you talk to that a little bit?
There's definitely options. It does take time to research all of them, which ones fit best. If there's one specific for pickleball, if there's one specific for playground, timelines and requirements of all of them. Going back to the site planning, a lot of the grants require you to be close to project ready. And so getting to the site planning portion of it to get the park laid out is a critical component to be able to start applying for grants. So like I said, even getting 300,000 on top of 600,000, there's still a gap. So there's still more funding that would likely need to come into play. Another question?
Started this planning process 5 years ago.
The master plan portion? I have been here for 4 years. We did a rink feasibility because the rink is it's close to the end of its useful life. And so we kind of started there, seeing the magnitude of that project, realized maybe we should look at the whole park. Maybe we should look at the whole system. And so we started on the master plan in 2022. So we've been at it 2.5, 3 years, but fundraising since May. So we're very early in the fundraising portion of it. Correct.
They included any capital expenditures in the city budget for any of this kind of stuff, anticipating that since they were establishing the master plan that was going to require some capital improvement, that have they considered setting money aside?
Good question. Yes. So since I've been here, city council has had a strong priority in setting a strategic plan, planning for the future. We have spent significant amount of time looking at long-range planning, whether it's from an operational standpoint, an infrastructure standpoint, you know, employee and safety, things like that. And so, as I mentioned, it's projected that we have about 7 million in existing infrastructure. So we've started putting money aside to help with future replacements, but not necessarily implementing the master plan. So there's components of it, like the playground and the hockey rink and pickleball to some level that are currently existing, that we'd want, you know, to start planning for replacement. However, we started planning for replacement 3 years ago.
Don't want to sound critical, but it seems odd to me that we would start out with a master plan knowing it was coming, and nobody would be surprised that the master plan would call for improvements and replacements, and the city council would have not established some kind of fund or some kind of program.
Yeah, so we are putting money away, but it's not necessarily to implement the specific master plan. It's to replace things within the park system. So it's a minor distinction between the two. Question?
Maybe this is the right time for this, but you spoke to about the funding and the limitations from the city's perspective. At some point, can you speak to us on that so we understand?
Limited in our fundraising abilities? Yes, so and Jenny, hop on in if I don't get this totally correct. Simple, short answer is we can kind of do education, very passive efforts. Where it gets tricky is we're not meant to be doing like active fundraising and hosting events and doing the silent auctions and hosting the galas and door knocking and things like that. Does that help answer? Potentially, yes. So if it's something that you think you're passionate about, if you have an expertise in, if you are involved in an organization or a business that you think you could help in some way, shape, or form, please just come talk to me. Yep.
What about? I'm trying to throw this out of my head. So we have many partners, many business partners who are our community. Obviously, when you talk about economic opportunities, this can be a dime card for other businesses. Is it within your purview to engage in conversations with them to support financially what you're doing? Or are you saying that's gonna be the function of outside groups? So if you want to go to Grandview and say, hey, Grandview, we'd like you to make a donation of $7 million to support this. Can the city do that?
So it gets very touchy on what city staff can do to get funds. The city staff, people that work for the city can work with an organization like this and put up the fundraising that they did. The
Nisswa Enrichment
campaign,
Fund.
as far as going out and soliciting private entities and so forth, they cannot do that. That's why a lot of municipalities have what's called, people have formed Friends of the Parks. Usually it's an LLC. They can do that kind of stuff. Staff can't do that. I would love to do it because I used to do a lot of that up north, but with me being with the city, I can't. But and I would say from a perspective of the council, let's take the hockey rink first, the ice. That's been on borrowed time for 20 years. Because it was a used chilling unit that was bought. City's been putting in thousands and thousands of dollars every year to just keep it going. It's finally kaput. realizing that is when step forth, we need to redo this something, let's look at the whole parks. But it's, yeah. I wish we could just pull out the upwards of $10 million and say, here you go. It's just not feasible, but at least we're looking at it to get started so that we can have something in, so we can have this park yet in 10 years.
So I'll say this is a pretty large undertaking that the city council has agreed to and supported. Because it's not a small bit of infrastructure. It's an extensive process. You know, we start with the master plan and then that takes two years, and now it takes another couple of years to get through fundraising and the planning efforts before you even get to construction. So it's definitely a longer process than I think any of us want it to be. It's extensive. There's a lot of nuances to it. So I'm glad you guys are all here and able to ask your questions because there's just a lot of layers and considerations to it. So the Nisswa Enrichment Fund, Terry's gonna talk a little bit more about how that part works next. I just want to reiterate, just the importance of Park and Rec, the importance it is to you as an individual, the importance it is to our community. I appreciate you guys being here, your interest, your involvement. I encourage everybody to continue to share their experiences, places that they've liked, places that they haven't, what you like about this space, these concepts. We're working through it. We're putting the plan in place and we want ongoing feedback. We want to hear your questions as we continue to navigate this. We want your help. We want your help if you can financially donate, if you can donate your time, if you have ideas. I want you guys to feel welcome bringing those forward. So my contact information is up on the screen. You can stop by City Hall, you can call me, you can email me. I do have some business cards over here if you guys are able to stay till the end of the event, with some handouts as well. And then, like I said, again, if you're willing to stay and you have more questions, we can certainly look at the information and go through that. So I am gonna switch out the screens.
Anybody been out there yet?
Mark, can you pronounce the real name?
What's that?
Can you pronounce the real name?
No.
Na Waiizage Igini between the Lakes Park. There's a sound blip on the website. You can practice. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Terry Foster, and for those of you that, I do usually have a loud voice, so I won't shout you out the window here. But I'm Terry Foster. I grew up around the Pequot, Nisswa area out on County Road 29 across from Hunts Point. And have a family. We have 4 children, my husband and I, and 1 left in school at Pequot. And I have always loved this community and I've spent most of my life. And about 7 years ago, I joined the Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the fund that Amber shared with you. But I first want to also just make a note about making sure that everybody understands the complexity of this project. You already have staff, as you said, you know, she's got a huge team over here of 2 full-time employees. They already have probably a pretty full plate. And, you know, the advisory committee for this group, for the Park and Recs, again, would be volunteer, many of people who have, you know, jobs and other obligations. And so it's going to be really important to get the support financially. And as they mentioned, the city government, it's kind of a hard way to go ahead and fundraise for them. So we need to support, and I'm going to try and do that as much as I can. And I'm asking that each of you also consider what you can do and in getting the word out and helping, you know, get this done. So I think it'll be a wonderful project. And I also need to get my liability statement out of the way with here so that I am not an attorney. I am not an accountant. Do we have any attorneys or accountants in the room? Past, former? Okay, I was gonna say, see them after. All right. Okay, so don't judge me. I'm giving ideas and some ideas about what you may be able to give besides some cash. And I just want to kind of spark some ideas that might help you, okay? But you should always seek your professional accountants and legal advice, okay? So go ahead and we'll get into the community foundation here. Oh, thank you, Amber. So why a community foundation and who are we? The Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation, and this is just what we're gonna talk about here today, was started about 26 years ago. And what a community foundation does, you can see the legal definition up there, tax exempt, nonprofit. Okay, it's a little dry over there reading the rest. But basically, a community foundation is started to connect people and resources to help make a community thrive and make giving easy, okay? And so we'll talk a little bit more about the giving easy. So it's kind of like with planting. Our logo is a tree. When you're planting seeds and they're sprouting and you nurture them, you can reap the impact. Sometimes those are endowed funds for a park, okay? Sometimes those are funds that allow for fundraising, such as the Gull Lake Trail Fund, Friends of the Nisswa Lake Park Fund. The Nisswa Fire Department has a fund with us, and that is for designated for their operations and their activities that they have. There we go. So as I mentioned, we are run by a group of 12 to 15 volunteer board of directors. Some of those people you can see in the bottom, and that picture shows us several of them. Right now, we have about $22.5 million in assets and about 143 funds. So you're probably wondering, wow, we don't have to do any fundraising. You already got the money. I would love to say that we do, but a lot of those funds are held in what's called a donor advised fund. That means individuals such as yourself can start a charitable fund that is invested and grows, and they direct where those funds go to their favorite charities throughout their lifetime. Other funds would be like the Nisswa Fire Department Fund or this Nisswa Enrichment Fund, right? And so the reason why, well, I'm getting ahead of myself, hang on, I know it's exciting, but we have given through our generous donors and fund holders and the foundation, we have some grant rounds, over $11 million in grants since its inception. And we are averaging a little over $1 million a year right now. And I do anticipate as this grows, in a few years, we could be seeing several $1 million going out in grant funding to support nonprofits and our Lakes area communities. So it's really going to be having a great impact. We are a part of a group of community giving is what it's called. And it's made up of local community foundations. We're kind of like a co-op. And why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because we kind of know what we're doing as far as a community foundation. We have the secret sauce of community giving that's been around for about 15 years longer than us. And we collectively, there's about $250 million under assets right now with these towns that are listed on the map there. And, giving out, $25 million in grants or grant funding to nonprofits. And the really cool thing is they know a lot about the investment processes. So all of these funds are invested, they're growing. They have really defined and refined processes that we get to take a part in. And there are two of us. I'm actually hiring and just made an offer. We had an open position, so I'll have some help soon, but in the Brainerd Lakes area. But we can access a lot of help through community giving. There's a staff of about 30 team members. And they can also help us accept gifts. And this is what's really important. Gifts that are not cash. Okay? So we'll talk about that again in a minute. I'm gonna whip through this. Again, I mentioned we have different types of funds. A donor advised fund, I'm not gonna go through all of this. What you don't even need to know, but it is a field of interest fund is what this Nisswa Enrichment Fund is. And the reason why it's a field of interest is it's covering an area of interest, parks and recreation for the city of Nisswa. These funds will only be used for this purpose, okay? And it could be, you could have this fund for into perpetuity. It could become at some point even an endowed fund. Right now, the city has full access to these funds. They can pull them out. They're growing interest and as they're fundraising. So hopefully they'll have more to give and pay out as they do each phase. But I wanted to also tell you about the donor advised funds, especially, or if you have a business, a corporate fund, because there might be a way to kind of help yourself while you're helping this Nisswa Enrichment Fund. So here are some ways of giving. Right now, does anybody have a guess? How much of our wealth is held privately in cash versus non-cash gift? What's a percentage? Anybody got a guess? 20? It's actually, we have about 3% of our wealth is held in cash. So about 97% of most people's wealth is held in non-cash gifts or assets. So what does that mean? That means real estate, retirement funds, stocks, your life insurance policies. It means businesses and, properties. So a lot of non-cash assets. And yet about 85% of our giving is done through cash. And cash is sometimes not the best way for you to receive a tax benefit or for the charity, such as the Nisswa Enrichment Fund, to receive that because they might not receive the full value. Some of it Uncle Sam might take out, or there might be some capital taxes. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some ways that, that might be more smart for you to give. And when I mentioned community giving, they actually have an arm of a real estate arm, and they can help with real estate gifts. So for example, we're working on right now a gift. Somebody has some lake property. They don't necessarily need that asset or the money right now. They're getting older. What is done to the market, everybody knows here, is substantially increased from when they bought it 50 years ago. And so they might have large capital gains taxes and income taxes on that, on selling that property. There's ways to do all or part or a percentage into kind of a trust, if you will, into another holding that community giving would work with you. And you could sell that property as long as it's done before you go into a contract with a realtor. You can go ahead and do this, and you can sell, again, all or part or a percentage to lower your capital gains or gift all of it. And all of that money or whatever part you were going to gift could go directly into this fund here at the Nisswa Enrichment Fund. You can also do that with businesses, also agriculture. Our community foundation partner in Wilmer, they actually accepted a combine and some ag equipment last year. Some foundations are accepting cows. I'm not sure exactly how they're working all that out, but those are things that, check with us. If you're selling a business, real estate, all of those things, it might be very tax advantageous for you. And it might also help out your favorite pretty darn good community here, right? Again, stocks. So stocks, you can go ahead and I'm gonna just flip forward here and then see if I can flip back. This is an example of a stock gift. So let's say you're going to sell some of your stock, and on the left side, it's the value when you purchased it was $20,000, okay? And the current price is 50,000. So the capital gains, if you were to just sell that and, pay the capital gains taxes on that, you would probably pay about $7,140 on that. And then if you were to give the remaining cash to the Nisswa Enrichment Fund, let's say, you would be giving only $42,860 versus the full $50,000 for the stock. Plus, your income tax savings would be more by donating the stock. Does that make sense at all? Okay. So some unique ways, I was just going to say, the other thing is bunching gifts. A reason why somebody might start a donor advised fund is right now, if you are going to take a tax deduction, your standard deduction for a single person is $14,600. Married filed jointly is $29,200. Most of us don't reach that threshold to take a to take anything other than that standard deduction. We can't itemize. But what if you are retiring and you're getting maybe a payout from your business or, extra salary? Or what if you had a high income year and you say you want to lower your income and you want to lower that tax obligation? You might throw, instead of just maybe you do $5,000 a year for charity, you might actually put in $50,000 this year into your fund. And that fund, remember, is invested and will grow. And you can use that fund however you want to give gifts for the next many years or for the rest of your life, and maybe even have your children or someone else succeed on that fund. And so those are ways that you could help yourself. You could say, hey, I'm going to give so much a year to the Nisswa Enrichment Fund through my donor advised fund, but I can also support my church or my other favorite charities. IRA minimum distribution. Again, don't look at the age on this, because any of you that are over the age of 70 and a half or weren't over the age of 70 and a half a couple of years ago, you may know that the IRS decided to keep changing and raising that limit. And I believe it is actually at 72 right now, but correct me if I'm wrong if somebody knows that. But right now, if you're over the age of 72, let's say, and if I'm wrong, I apologize. I know it says 73 up there. You are required to take a required minimum distribution from your IRA. What if you don't need that? And what if it's not a Roth IRA? And what if you're going to have to pay, again, more taxes? Well, we actually have somebody in this room that was smart enough to know what to do. And so that person said, hey, I want to turn that check directly over to the Nisswa Enrichment Fund. And that will be a great way for me to save taxes, a great way for me to support my favorite charity. And you can do that. There's also another thing that started in January of 23, whereas you can do a legacy qualified charitable distribution. So another way, again, I don't want to bore everybody. I do see a few eyes glazing over, so I will keep moving forward here. But again, I just want to spur ideas around what you can give, and to know that you can ask us for free. We will talk with your accountants, with your attorneys, your financial advisors, work with Amber and Jenny at the city. And so if you have questions, please let us know. We do have charitable gift annuities. And then I just want to ask, what do you want to leave behind for the next generation? Some of you may recognize that third picture. Anybody know who that is? Millie Gertzen. Yeah. Millie Gertzen wanted, she scrimped and saved for most of her life, as many of you know. And she ended up helping out several charities in the Lakes area after her passing and even before. So the Nisswa Lake Park, a lot of those improvements and additions to the park were because of Millie. And so I ask you, think about your favorite community. And a lot of you in this room are of the age, if I may say, that are a little more experienced and perhaps part of this big baby boomer group. And I don't know if you're aware, but you worked really hard and you saved a lot of money. And right now, we're going to be continue to see for the next 10 to 15 years, the biggest transfer of wealth that has ever happened in the United States history from your generation to the next. And I also ask you to think about your favorite communities where there's pretty darn good shopping and pretty darn good community members. Yes, and pickleball. And I want you to think about what would happen if you were to give maybe 5% of your estate to your community. Can you imagine the endowed fund that we would have in 20 years? We wouldn't have to wait for pickleball courts or whatever the next, craze is of that, right? If we had the next COVID pandemic, that we could have never expected, we'd have a fund there that would be able to meet needs of the community. And so again, through your estate planning, we've done some estate planning workshops. Some of the attorneys that we've worked with have said, hey, if you want to really give yourself some leniency and allow yourself to make some changes in your trust or your will, put a message in there that, hey, I want X percentage, or after we pay out all of these folks, I want the rest to go to my donor advised fund. And then you can give us directions and say, hey, every year I want the city of Nisswa, through their enrichment fund to get X amount for maintenance of this park or for building a park. You could also then take care of those other charities that you want to, such as church or whatever that might be. So it's a really good idea to just think about that. And also memorial gifts can be made directly to, the Nisswa Enrichment Fund. Like I said, payable on death. We also have somebody that recently gave a large life insurance policy to a charity of their choice. So lots of things to think about. And I appreciate all of you because I think it's the people that make Nisswa so special and wonderful and the Lakes area. And so again, this is how you can help. As Amber mentioned, I think if each of you were to consider contributing and finding 5 of your closest friends and saying, could you do this? Would you support that? That would really help. So I also have a few brochures, some business cards, and if you have any questions, please feel free and ask me. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate everything.
Does anyone have any questions for Terry right now?
Oh no, the legal professional over here, okay. Just kidding. Okay, go ahead.
Did you say that the city had complete control of this line in terms of the drawing fund?
Yes. Yep. So, and that's something that I'm really proud about. Some community foundations or other organizations similar will endow those funds or maybe only allow you to have a certain percentage out annually. That is not the case. I want to assure you that they can request the full amount when they're ready and, well, as long as, remember the first part where I said it is limited to, Jenny, do you remember the exact verbiage? Yes, yep. And there is a phrase in the fund agreement that is around but it's for the city of Nisswa for enrichment. Yep.
So would those funds be earmarked for this particular project or anything the city council may?
No. I I think, so the,
Right now, this is our primary use of the funds. This is what we're going for. And then if you do choose to make a cash donation or a check donation, if you wanted to go specifically towards pickleball, you'd make sure you write in this one, Richmond Fund, and make a note that that's the designated source you want it towards.
So in that case, for example, trying to get through phase one, let's say you had money in that pot for pickleball. What happens if we don't make that goal of the $350,000 and we don't apply for that February first? We don't hit that deadline. What happens with these funds? You get it filled out, you put it in the playground, whatever. What happens next?
So the funds stay there. But that's gonna be a real tough question that we're gonna have to answer, and city council is gonna have to answer if we don't. Yep, we'll keep it there. We're gonna try to keep those investments growing, so it is gaining interest as we go. But if we don't have enough money to do, we can't do the project until we have the money to do it. Well, we have existing infrastructure. Like I said, the playground and the hockey rink are on their last couple go-arounds. So we know that pickleball is a huge desire. We know that the courts we have are far from ideal. So it's gonna be something that we may have to wrestle with. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully we can find a way to, rally the community and find a way to make this happen. But yeah, it's a tall ask. It's a big project. We already have a lot of infrastructure that we need to deal with.
With some experience doing this with similar numbers, seems like we're missing a linkage in terms of, i.e. we raise X dollars, we will get, the quid pro quo, the approval and the construction and the digging starts. That seems to be a little squishy here. If the money was suddenly in there, how do we know that the shovels are gonna hit the ground?
That's why we're working on site planning right now. So the city has invested already 20,000 into the Nisswa Enrichment Fund, and they just approved a $25,000 contract to begin on site planning. So we're making those small strides to get closer. So it's kind of, a little bit of a chicken and an egg. We got to have some plans to get the money. We got to get the money to finalize the plans. So we're kind of trying to work in step with each other so that when the money's there, we're gonna be ready to execute it.
So the city council would have to obviously have a budget at that point and RFQ, whatever you're gonna do. And then we would know how much needs to be in the fund to accommodate that, right?
Yeah, so part of the site planning is we're gonna try to refine some of the educated ballparking we've done so far. Try to get that closer to actual. And then, so that'll give us a better idea realistically where the funds are, all while keeping an eye on our existing infrastructure, because if it becomes unsafe, it's removed.
Amber, maybe you could address the primary grant that we're looking at right now is the DNR's park. I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's got a April 1st deadline. And it's a $350,000 grant, and we need $350,000. We're trying to raise $600,000, but we need the full match of $350,000 in order to proceed with applying for that grant by April 1st.
That would be the preferred based on that we have joined pickleball in the playground as phase 1. So again, the estimated cost of that is close to 1.2 million. We're gonna work through that, we're gonna refine that. But when the grant is only $350,000 max, and it needs a 50% match, you're only at 700,000, so there's a gap. And so we're trying to refine our numbers, we're trying to raise the funds so we can apply for that grant. There's other grant opportunities as well that we can apply for. Some are pickleball specific, some are playground specific. Most of them need site plans. You gotta be close to shovel ready. The DNR grant has a 2-year window. So we have to be ready to implement it within a construction season.
So at that point, when you're trying for this first phase one, and let's say you don't have quite all the money, is there any ideal thing of eliminating, paring down to get some of this stuff done at that point?
It's something that this commission has talked about in theory and wrestled with. There is no there's no plan or direction as of now. We're still going for the goal, right? So once, unfortunately, if we don't make it, then maybe we kick it out one more year. If the existing infrastructure can hold out. If not, then we may have to adjust what we apply for. A lot of scenarios, a lot of different scenarios could play out.
Infrastructure, can you,
7.
existing infrastructure, tell me what that means, so you're talking about the hockey court, the structures.
Yep, so within our park system, it's a lot of the physical elements. So it's the warming house, it's the hockey rink, into the lighting of the fields, the fencing, a picnic shelter.
So that's what you have now, and then what you're saying is at some point, some priorities are gonna have to be established into shoring up what you have versus going forward with something new? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I'll say, so when I say 7 million in infrastructures within the entire park system, we need to be able to plan for replacement on everything. Some things are gonna go faster, some things are gonna go slower. Right now, we don't have the money to replace most of it. We don't have that kind of savings. The city can't levy for it. That's extensive. And there's not a lot of funding streams for Park and Rec. We run a couple of programs. That's not gonna cut it. Right now, one of the options we had been looking at was a local option sales tax. The state, it requires state legislation. There's a moratorium on that. So that's another, in the back of our mind, a potential way to have a cash flow for it. So if we're looking at phase 1 being 1.2 million, if there's a shortfall on that and infrastructure needs to be addressed, it's gonna have to run through the Parks Commission, it's gonna have to run through City Council. Maybe there's a different funding source, a different way, something at that time, but until we see what reality holds, it's speculation.
The money that you're asking, this may be a question more of you. Does that need to be tangible assets that have already transferred? Can it be pledges, combination thereof? How does that look?
Well, I'm gonna answer this and then feel free, Amber, if you have anything else to say or something different, but I think at this point, anything that you would like to pledge or give would be very much appreciated. From my understanding, it sounds like there's going to be a need, right, for enrichment in parks and recreation for many years to come. And so whether all of that is given now, or if you're able to give to more of a, a pledged gift that would come later, maybe that helps with the next phase of development. Would you agree?
But in regards to your DNR,
From the DNR standpoint, I believe it will score higher if we have the cash.
I'm sorry, yeah. You can
But
put
also
those,
true.
yeah. You can put those down as pledged, but again, they do prefer that you have the money in hand. And there are, just so you know too, I can only do so much too as a staff of 1 right now with 2 soon, but we also want to see this done, right? It's good for our community. I love this area. And so we're trying to work with some of our donors. That's kind of some of the benefit of working with us as well is, remember that 22.5 million that we have right now? Seeing if some of our donors would say either from their fund or personally, hey, I'll do this, or I'll set up a match pledge, and that's one of the things that we're working on right now is also to help with that. Also have some other connections for some other grants. But again, Amber's right. It really helps to have that site, what's the word, planning,
Yes, site planning.
site plan done. So.
So another question?
So, parts of the, grant, I don't know it, but, let's say you get it that first year, can you apply for your next phase or something else the next year, or how does that, anybody know how that?
Yeah, there's various rules where you can only apply for like one park at a time. But yes, you can apply the same park, just once, probably one cycle is closed, you can apply again for another round.
Right, I think you're gonna have that closed out completely, which would,
Correct. Yep. Awesome. Well, good questions. Thank you, Terry. We have one order of business to attend to here, but like I said, you guys are welcome to stay and ask questions after. The one bit of business we have is regarding an RFQ for City Park Playground. And so as part of the site plan and as part of the DNR grant, they require certain things. One of the biggest things is knowing what playground elements are gonna be in there, what's gonna stay, what's gonna be new, fall heights, things like that. So we need to have a preliminary plan for the playground in order to apply for that to be in the grant. What you guys had in your packet is a slightly different approach. So the proposed or the estimated cost of the playground replacement would require bidding. The bid requirement is $175,000. We estimate that the playground is going to be over that. We're proposing to go through Sourcewell or a state contract who has already kind of checked that bidding box. So it's going to streamline the process a little bit. In a lot of approaches, the playground company will design a playground for us. That's not what we're asking for. We are asking for examples of what they've already completed. And so that's why you have kind of a list of guiding principles there. Those are taken kind of from the master plan, as well as some of the feedback I've heard, as well as the goals of the grant. So looking at Sourcewell, there's probably 3 playground vendors that are a really good fit for this project. But wanted to get the commission's feedback on the RFP, trying this process. The timeline puts it, if we get it to city council here in October, we can open the RFP in November. We'd be able to review it in December at the Parks Commission and the city council meeting, and then they could be awarded and start an initial plan in order to be ready for the DNR grant.
Amber, before we discuss that, the council approved that WSN would do a site planning
Yes,
process. So are they doing anything related to the playground, or are they doing a site planning for the pickleball courts? What exactly is WSN doing that the
Yep, so-
council approved them to do?
the list that I had on the screen, there was a lot of it. It's looking at the space as a whole, so every amenity gets its area. In terms of the playground, they need to determine the size of the container. Okay, so they're gonna figure out how big in the foundation of it in the park space, and then that information will go to the playground company and they'll know how much space they have in the shape of it in order to then build the playground on top of. So the playground company will work with the engineers
Okay.
And understanding some of those things and, you know, topography and drainage and all those things are gonna be looked at, utilities. But in terms of who's picking the swing to the twirly slide to, you know, we're gonna work with the playground company to determine which elements are gonna be in the playground.
Okay, so the RFQ is a sub part of the total site planning that WSN is doing.
Correct, because we'll
And are
need
they- is
specific
it-
information from them for the grant.
Are they addressing the specific requirements for the DNR grant?
Yes, that would be
The
a
end
part of what,
product Will be what you need to submit.
yes.
As documentation for the
Yep.
grant proposal. Okay.
So they'll have to work kind of jointly.
Well, my first reaction to the RFP is, I mean, I really like it. I love that we are not seeking necessarily a certain dollar amount, being that it's an inclusive playground, it's a destination playground. We're looking for a marriage between the city and a company that's willing to work with us, design with us, learn our community versus somebody else's community, and take a lot of these important values in place versus just coming in with who can provide the best number. Cause, you know, if it was a one-off playground, you know, but this is, you know, this is gonna be something that is a little bit different. So I appreciate that we're taking this versus sending it out to see who the lowest bidder is, cause I mean, as you guys know, I've a background in this industry, and so I appreciate this method versus, you know, different one.
My only question relates to the timeline that you included here. So it appears that this commission, which I won't be a member of in February, but the February 6th Parks Commission review, does that give you enough time to get the council to review the recommendations of this committee and be prepared if you do proceed with grant applications?
I think it'll give us a good baseline and we'll see what the actual deadline is for the grant coming up in December, but historically it's been the end of March, beginning of April. So I think that would allow for another month. And it doesn't have to be the final design,
Yeah.
right? We just have to have the, you know, a good progress on it in order to apply for the grant and get that required information. So I think it does allow for a little bit of revision feedback. But it's definitely a tight time frame.
Okay. You ready for a motion to?
If you guys are ready, I'm ready. Oh, happy to answer questions or take any other feedback.
Any other comments, guys?
Well, I was just gonna go ahead and make a motion, that we proceed with, submitting this. It goes to the council next.
Yep.
To the council in a couple of weeks for approval to submit the RFQ for the playground
Yeah, and
assessment.
I'll second that motion. Can we get a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Awesome.
Carries.
Next meeting is November 7th. Any other final comments and discussion topics?
Well, you might start discussing my replacement.
Yeah, I tried to save everything else for November, so see you in November. I got a list.
You could never be replaced.
Oh, I've been commission for 8 years. I think I've done my duty.
Done our civic duties, but awesome. Yeah, so we will have agenda items in November. Otherwise, motion to adjourn.
Okay. Looks like.
Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Oh.
Anybody?
Sherry,
Second.
Blake,
All in favor?